guys. Welcome or welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. It's so greatly appreciated. It truly, truly is. Before I get started, let me give you my usual disclaimer that this video is for educational purposes only. Please do not take what I say as fact. Please always do your own research and come to your own conclusions. Next, if you have not liked, subscribed, or commented yet, please consider doing so. It really helps me out and I really, really appreciate it. Okay, so today we're talking about 28-year-old Robert Barroso. He was born on August 2nd, 1988 in Battle Creek, Michigan to parents Robert and Lori Ann. He had two brothers, Ventura and Jeremy, and a son named Robert Jason or Jace that he absolutely adored. His son was the light of his life. He graduated Calhoun County High School in 2007 and was employed at Denso Manufacturing. Robert was described as loving, upbeat, happy, outgoing, full of life, and having an upbeat personality that radiated happiness. He loved fishing, video games, playing guitar, the outdoors, and spending time with his family and friends. Robert's best friend since the fourth grade was Stephen Getter. The two were always together. When they were younger, they would play video games, build forts, and just do what 90s boys did, like ride bikes, play manhunt. Robert and Stephen considered each other family. That was until Robert would fall in love and marry Stephen's sister, Jennifer, and then the two would actually become family. Both sides of the family were together all the time. They would barbecue, they would have cookouts, family outings, bonfires, drinking, hanging out, the whole nine. A few years into their marriage, Robert and Jennifer would have their son, Robert Jason or Jace. Jennifer was told her entire life that she would never be able to have children. So when Jace came along, he was literally a miracle baby. So from the outside looking in, Robert and Jennifer had a perfect relationship. They were always together. They would light up when each other walked in the room. They had this beautiful baby together, literal miracle baby together. I mean, perfect family, right? Wrong. Just like photos on social media, looks can be very deceiving. Their relationship was falling apart, and 4 years into their marriage, Jennifer decided she wanted more for herself than just a stay-at-home wife and mom. She would decide to start a sewing business for herself. So, just like any other business that wants to be successful, this takes a lot of time, a lot of dedication, and a lot of hard work. Sacrifices need to be made if you want to be successful. It's just how it is. These also include sacrifices having to be made from family and friends, especially your spouse and your children. I've experienced this type of sacrifice both as a child and as a parent, and it's extremely difficult on both ends. But I will never personally fault her for trying to better herself. I just won't. As Jennifer became more busy and her and Robert grew further and further apart, Robert began spending a lot of time with Jennifer's brother Stephen and Stephen's fiancée Roxy Bruce. Big deal, right? So, Roxy was described as very sweet, very kind, and very pretty. The more time Robert would spend at Stephen's house, the more and more time him and Roxy would talk. Stephen was described as having very severe anger issues. He would lash out at Roxy quite often, and because of this, him and Roxy began having a lot of problems in their relationship. Roxy and Robert then began spending a lot of their time together while Stephen was at work. Then, not long after this, in case you couldn't have figured it out, Roxy and Robert begin sleeping together. As their relationship heats up, Roxy and Robert would talk more and more through text. And the more and more they talked, the more and more careless they became. Roxy would send Roxy would send Robert naked pictures of herself, and one day, Robert's wife, Jennifer, who is also Roxy's future sister in law, would find them. What an absolute mindfuck. Like, I literally just covered a story like this, which was equally a mindfuck. Guys, stop stealing other people's partners, especially your best friend's partners. I don't understand this. Typically, the way you get them is the way you lose them. Jennifer was understandably furious about this. She kicked Robert out of the house, sent him to go live with his mother, and filed for divorce. When Stephen found out, he went over to the house in the middle of the night while Robert was sleeping. His sister let him in, I'm assuming, and began beating him up in his sleep. After Robert moved in with his mother, Roxy would end the relationship with Robert to stay with Stephen. So, from the way Stephen's described, I would say that she probably chose Stephen because he was the safer bet. They had already begun their life together. He was the father of her children, so therefore she doesn't have to split time with her kids. She doesn't have to lose out on time with her kids. Because I don't know, and maybe they had a house and money. I don't know that part, but if he had such bad anger issues, I wonder why he would have been the one that she would have picked. I don't know. But nevertheless, she picked Stephen. Then at some point, Stephen decides to forgive Robert. The two have a talk, they go fishing, and things go back to normal for them. But it gets worse, obviously. Of course, you wouldn't be here if it didn't, right? They even start hanging out again all the time with Roxy. What? Then, not long after the trio began hanging out again, Roxy, good old Roxy, she announces that she's pregnant again and that she doesn't know which one of them is the father. Come the fuck on. Come on. She told Robert she thought that he was the father, and she told Stephen that she truly believed he was the father. When the baby finally arrived, Stephen believed it was his baby, and Robert believed it was his baby. Then, after the baby was born, Stephen would fly into a rage when anyone would comment that the baby looked like it belonged to Robert. Because people would do it a lot. And I'm thinking that this cut really deep because Stephen's family would also be the ones making these comments. I don't know, maybe if you think it, even if you think something like that and like Stephen is your blood, maybe you just keep it to yourself. Just lock it inside there for a little bit, you know? Like, maybe not tell him something like that. Just saying. When the baby was 10 months old, Roxy would end things with Stephen and give her relationship with Robert another chance. Robert moved into the home and the two began a very widely known relationship. No hiding, no lying, nothing. They were out in the open. During the entire time that Roxy and Robert were giving their relationship a real chance, Stephen was trying to get back with Roxy. Then, 2 months into giving her relationship with Robert a chance, she decides to break things off with Robert ask him to move out, and then have Stephen move in less than 24 hours later. The mind games are for real with this one. Come on. January 2nd, 2017, police officers respond to a call about an abandoned car in the woods. When police arrive, they find the back window broken, Christmas gifts inside the car, and blood on the outside of the car. When police run the plates, the car shows up as belonging to Robert. They go over to Robert's mom's house, who has already reported her son missing prior to them finding the car. She told cops that the last time she saw her son was in the middle of the night. She woke up, went outside, and saw him and his best friend Stephen driving away in separate cars, and it did not look like they were going to exchange pleasantries. She says that when he never arrived back home, she reported him missing to police and then drove around the town looking for him, but to no avail. When police went to talk to Stephen, he told them that after they left each other that night, Robert said that he was going to unalive himself, and that's the last time that he saw his friend. The family says no way, Robert would never do something like that, and he would never, ever, ever leave his son. Robert did have a cell phone, but he didn't have a cell phone provider, so his phone only worked through Wi-Fi. This is 100% possible. I know that this is 100% possible because my son has his cell phone with no cell phone number because he's 9. So this absolutely can be done. 6 days into Robert missing, Roxy receives a message from Robert, a Facebook message from Robert that reads, "Not okay. You and the kids and Stephen look happy. I love you. Bye." So Roxy, she's just relieved to know that Robert's still alive, and police say that her reactions seem genuine. Police don't believe that these messages were coming from Robert. For starters, where the car was found. The Christmas gifts in the back seat of the car, the busted out window in the back seat, and the blood on the outside of the car. None of it makes sense. Police obtained a search warrant to seize Roxy's router to see if Robert's phone connected to Roxy's router after he was gone, because he didn't have a cell phone provider, so his phone only worked through Wi-Fi. So therefore, for the phone to make that Facebook message, for the phone to send that Facebook message, it would have had to connect to some sort of Wi-Fi. So they take Roxy's router. When police start talking about the router, Stephen becomes visibly nervous. He eventually breaks and tells police that he was indeed the person that sent the Facebook messages to Roxy. But he tells them that the only reason for this was to try and put Roxy's mind at ease because she was so upset that Robert was missing. It's a pretty bad lie, right? I know this is a horrible lie. He steadfastly denies that he had anything to do with anything else involving Robert, though. His new version of the story pretty much stays the same, except for one new detail. He says that before Robert drove off, he put his cell phone on his car. So when he got in the car and he sped away, the cell phone flew off of his car, and that's how Stephen got possession of it. That could very well happen. But nothing else makes sense anyway, so it doesn't matter. Because why wouldn't you hand the phone over if you had nothing to do with it? Why wouldn't you follow I would follow an acquaintance that I thought was going to do something. Even if I was following them with the cops on the phone, I would follow an acquaintance that I thought was going to go do that to themselves. It just makes no sense. It all sounds stupid to me. Police decide to take a risk and pin Robert's death on Stephen, but he sticks to his story. So they try a new tactic, and they send in the detective that started working the case with him from the beginning, because him and Stephen had built somewhat of a rapport together. So while he's talking to him in the room, Stephen asks him if they can go outside to smoke a cigarette. So he says, sure. They get into the detective's car, and the detective has the heat going. First off, because it's very, very cold that day, but more importantly, because the car is equipped with audio recording.
You and I both know, Stephen, that something bad happened between you and Robert. He is laying out there. If you want to wait to tell us the whole story until tomorrow, that's great. But we got to get him out of the outdoors. That we have to do, Stephen. I don't care how it went down. You got to get him back inside.
Genius. He agrees to take the detective to Robert's body, and then on his way up, his story changes again. He admits to meeting up with Robert that night to fight it out with their fists over their ongoing feud about Roxy. He says that because Robert had threatened to bury him in the past, he was on high alert and decided to bring a loaded rifle with him just in case.
What if he really was serious when he said he was going to bury me? Right. I mean, you have the right to be a little bit nervous when somebody's telling you what they're going to do. You know what I mean? He got out of his car first and reached in for something. I don't know what it was, but it looked like he put something behind him.
He says they pulled over. Robert got out first, but reached in for something. And he wasn't sure what it was that he reached in for. He then began walking towards Stephen, not saying a word, but just walking towards him. And Stephen told him to stop, but he didn't stop, still not saying a word. So Stephen sees the knife in Robert's hand, and he says that he shot him once, but that did nothing. Nothing happened. So he says that he unloaded the 10 rounds that were in his gun.
Started walking forward towards me. Yep. What did you put in your pants? Okay. When I told him to stop, he kept walking at me. I tried to aim for his shoulder.
Okay. He goes on to say that he walked over to Robert, who then told him, "Thank you." This is what I mean. Thank you. He then says Robert asked him to finish it.
Thank you. Finish it.
So he began stabbing him with the knife that Robert brought to use on him. He then dragged him into the woods and left him there. January 6, 2017, Stephen Getter is arrested for the murder of Robert Barroso.
A lot of unanswered questions still. Why he did what he did, we'll never know. There were only 2 people there that night, him and my son, and only one person walked away.
Stephen has a hard, brutal life in prison, so he is no longer a threat to society. I hope every day for the rest of his life he has to think of the lives he destroyed.
Stephen claims self-defense, but the medical examiner's office begged to differ with that theory. So, detectives believe this is how the whole thing went down. Robert was lured to the spot in the woods where he thought there was going to be a fist fight. They believe that after the 2 pulled up, Robert jumped out of the car and was shot immediately. He was shot in the back 5 times, stabbed in the back of the head, rolled over, and then stabbed more in the face and the neck. Here's my public service announcement for the day, Stephen Getter. That's not self-defense. The motive is believed to be a fear of losing Roxy and the kids to Robert. After a 4-day trial, Stephen Getter was found guilty of first-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole. Oh, and the sweet baby girl, a DNA test would show that she was the daughter of Stephen Getter. All right, guys, if you're still here, thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you and appreciate you so, so, so very much. I truly, truly do. If you have not liked, subscribed, or commented yet, please consider doing so. It really helps me out, and I really, really appreciate it. If you have any case suggestions, please email me, harding527@yahoo.com. And until next time, stay safe out there.